We continue now at the top of Daf 100b and Meseches Menachos. This is Menachos Daf 100b. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought based on a brayso that kleisharis are mekadshin shelo bizmanan. For example, let's say the kometz is taken at night and it's placed into the kleisharis at night, even though the avodah is not supposed to be done at night. Nevertheless, that kometz is going to be sanctified, therefore it cannot be returned to the original carbon mincha. The Gemara ended up saying it's not kadosh li karev, it's not sanctified that it can be offered, but it is sanctified enough that it can be liposel, it can be made invalid, and so therefore again the basic idea kleisharis are mekadshin shelo bizmanan. And Rabbi Zera asked from our Mishnah. The Mishnah says that siddur as halechem ve'as habazichen achar Shabbos. Let's say they arranged the lechem haponim and they arranged the bazichen, which have the frankincense, instead of doing it on Shabbos, so they arranged it one day late. They arranged it on Sunday, and so then you have a problem when Shabbos comes. It hasn't been enough days on the shulchan, and so the Mishnah said, what should be done? You just leave it for the next Shabbos, even though it's on the shulchan for many days, many more days than usual. That is not a problem. And so the Gemara asked, if kleisharis are mekadshin shelo bizmanon, if kleisharis are mekadesh even not at the proper time, so then it was put on early. It should have had that kedusha immediately, at the very least, liposel, at the very least, in order to be disqualified. And so therefore you really do have a problem of lina. It's been sanctified and it's been left longer than it's supposed to be. And so the Gemara on the previous summit said, Rabbi answered the question by saying that the answer to the question is, even though Laila is ein mechusar zman, if it's at night, but it's still part of the same basic day, so it happens at night, it's possible to be sanctified, and again there will be that disqualification based on the sanctification. However, over here, where it's many days earlier, it's not simply Laila, so there already that's considered mechusar zman, that's considered to be premature, and therefore even though there is sanctification at night, there would not be sanctification in this case. But the Gemara on the previous summit said, sof, but still even with this answer at the end, kimoti leil yodvei shimshi, but when the first Friday evening arrives, when that Friday evening, now you're in a situation of night, and it's just the night before, so then likdosh v'lifsal, at that point in time, it's a little bit early, it should be sanctified, and it should be disqualified in that situation. Rashi explains, kimoti leil yodvei shimshi, meaning even if you're going to say all those days early don't count because it's not sanctified when it's that early, but still on the Friday evening, which is one evening early, shall Shabbos Rishona, meaning that first Shabbos arrives and now Friday night comes, likdosh, so it's on the table, and so it should be sanctified. To ha'amrit laila ein mechusar zman, because even within your answer, you're saying that the night is not considered mechusar zman. V'lifsol b'leil shishi shall Shabbos sheni, and so now when it arrives at the second Friday night of that second Shabbos, now you will have that disqualification of belina, of being left past the proper time. Sharei omed sham shmona yamim shleim, because now it's standing there, now it's there for 8 full days, and it still should be a problem of lina, so that's not really going to answer the question, and so therefore again, when that leil yodvei shimshi arrives, likdosh v'lifsal, it should be sanctified and disqualified. And so the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Rava says, and some change this to Amar Ravina says, B'shekadam v'silik, when he went ahead, the Kohen went ahead and he removed it from the table, meaning again it was arranged on Sunday, that was already too early to be sanctified, but the question of the Gemara is that when the first Friday night arrives, it should be sanctified at that point in time, and now you will end up having a problem of lina, but the case in the Mishnah is he actually removed it before that Friday night. It wasn't on the table on that first Friday night, and therefore it was never sanctified. Rashi explains, B'shekodem v'silko, kodem ben hashmosha shel Shabbos Rishona, he removed it before ben hashmosha of that first Shabbos, v'sider l'mocher, and then he arranged it the next day, so now it really was arranged on Shabbos day, and that's why that is not an issue. And the Gemara continues with another answer, Mar Zutra, v'itema Rav Ashi Yomar Mar Zutra, and some say Rav Ashi says, Afilu tema b'shelo kadem v'silik, you can even say that our Mishnah is not when he went ahead and removed it from the table. However, Kevon desidro shelo k'mitzvah, so since it was arranged not in accordance with the mitzvah, meaning it was done on Sunday way before the proper time, it's not like it was arranged the night before, that already we can say it's sanctified. Here it was arranged even before that, and now it's just sitting on the table from that arrangement, but not Nasa Kamisha Sidra Hakof. It's as if it was arranged by a monkey, meaning there was no action really considered to have been taken at all, and therefore there is no sanctification. Rashi explains, Shalo ki mitzvah, so it was done not in accordance with the mitzvah, the Sidro Ba'odo Mechusar Zman, because again it was arranged when it was Mechusar Zman, it was premature. So Nasa Kamisha Sidra Hakof, it's as if it was arranged by the monkey, V'en Shulchan Mekadsho Afilu Bismano, so the table is not going to sanctify even in the proper time. Aval Kometz ki mitzvah so chashivale, but by the komets done at night, that's considered done in accordance with the mitzvah. The laila in mechusar zman, because again, laila nighttime is not considered mechusar zman, it's not considered premature. And just going back to the previous summit for a moment, we noted this when we learned the Mishnah. Again, the language of the Mishnah was Sidr es halechem es habazichin la'achar haShabbos, v'hikder es habazichin b'Shabbos. If he arranged the lechem and the bazichin on Sunday, and then he burned the bazichin on Shabbos, psula, so then it's possible, it's disqualified. And then it said, Keitzad Yaseh, what should he do? Yani cheno l'Shabbos habo, he leaves it for the next Shabbos. Shafilu hi ala shulchan yomim rav mein b'kach klum. Even though it was on the table for many days, that is not an issue. And we noted over here that some take out the word psula, and we should note that Rashi in Yuma says that since Mar Zutra says that it's as if it was arranged by a kof, it's as if it was arranged by a monkey, so therefore it would not be psula, it would not be disqualified in this situation. There's no reason for the bread to be disqualified if that original arrangement is considered to be nothing at all, and so therefore Rashi argues that according to Mar Zutra, certainly the word psula should be taken out of the Mishnah. And we should also note that according to Mar Zutra, since that original placement on the table is nothing, so therefore when the Mishnah says, Keitzad Yasa Yanichenu l'Shabbos habo, just leave it on the table for the next Shabbos when it will be sanctified, that actually would not be sufficient. Just leaving it there on the table is not sufficient. It would actually have to be taken off and then placed back on in order that it's not going to be as if it was arranged by a monkey. And so therefore again, when it says Yanichenu l'Shabbos habo, it means remove it from the table on that first Shabbos and then replace it there, put it back there immediately so it can be sanctified. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Shtei halechem necholos ein pachos mishnayim, v'lo yoser al shlosha, the Shtei halechem of Shavuos, it's not eaten less than 2 days and not more than 3 days. As the Mishnah now explains, Keitzad, how so? Nefos me'erev yomtiv, the Shtei halechem is baked me'erev yomtiv, it's not supposed to be baked on yomtiv, it's baked the day before Shavuos, and then necholos b'yomtiv, and then it's eaten on yomtiv, on Shavuos itself, and so that's a case of l'shnayim, that's 2 days. It was baked on erev yomtiv, it's eaten the next day on yomtiv. Now chol yomtiv lios achar haShabbos, if yomtiv falls out after Shabbos, so now it cannot be baked on erev yomtiv because that day is Shabbos. It has to be baked on Friday, the day before that. So necholos l'shlosha, so then it's going to be eaten 3 days after the day it's baked. Lechem haponim, with regards to the lechem haponim, nechol ein pachos mitisha there it's going to be not less than 9 days and not more than 11 days. Keitzad, how so? Nefe me'erev Shabbos, it's baked from erev Shabbos. V'nechol b'Shabbos, and then it's eaten on Shabbos. In other words, in a classic situation, it's baked on Friday. It's not eaten that very Shabbos, but it's eaten the next Shabbos. That's Latisha. That's 9 days. Again, all of these days, we're counting the day of the baking as day number 1. That's true also by the Shtei halechem as well. And chol yontiv lios erev Shabbos, if yontiv falls out on erev Shabbos, so now it can't be baked on erev Shabbos because that's yontiv. So nechol asar, that's going to be 10 days. Now shnei yomim tovim shel Rosh Hashanah. Let's say the 2 days of yontiv of Rosh Hashanah fall out, and therefore it can't be baked on Thursday either because Thursday and Friday is Rosh Hashanah. Now it has to be baked the day before. So nechol la'achad asar. So in that case, it's going to be eaten after 11 days. V'yeno docha lo es haShabbos v'lo es hayontiv, and it's not going to be docha Shabbos or yontiv, meaning baking it is not docha Shabbos or yontiv. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Haskan, in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Haskan, docha es yontiv. Actually, it does push off yontiv. Ve'eno docha es yom tzom, except that it would not push off Yom Kippur. We're talking about Yom Kippur. We're talking about the lechem haponim. Obviously, that's not relevant to the Shtei halechem. And the idea is, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, we say that it's essentially ochel nefesh, just like one is allowed to cook for their own personal needs. So too, when it's something that has to do with hektish, also, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. So there we also have that heter of ochel nefesh, but that heter of ochel nefesh would not apply on Yom Kippur. And Rashi explains, Lo pachos mishnei yomim mishenefu, again, not less than 2 days from when it's baked. Legimel shafom be'erev Shabbos, 3 days of, let's say it's baked erev Shabbos, shein afiyosan docha lo Shabbos v'lo yontiv, because again, baking is not going to be docha Shabbos or yontiv. And then when it comes to the lechem haponim, letisha l'Shabbos shniya, there it's 9 days, you're waiting for the second Shabbos. Necholos la'asora, sometimes it's going to be 10 days, shenefa b'chamishi b'Shabbos, if it can't be baked on Friday, it's on Thursday. And shnei yom tom shel Rosh Hashanah, sometimes you have 2 days yontiv Rosh Hashanah, that's going to be Thursday, Friday, you can't bake. So kodem l'Shabbos nefa bar, but now it's going to be baked on the Wednesday, v'nechelos l'Shabbos shniya la'achar osar, and then it's eaten on the second Shabbos after 11 days. And Rashi continues and notes, v'ikash, if you're going to ask Yud Bezdin, it actually should be 12 days, to ha'inen nechelos ad motzoi Shabbos, to oso Shabbos have a Yom HaKippurim. It actually can't be eaten until Motzei Shabbos, because that Shabbos is going to fall out as Yom Kippur in a situation when you have Thursday, Friday being Rosh Hashanah. But holo kasha, that's not difficult. The inyan achila achlas kodshim laila holech achar yom. As far as eating kodshim, the night follows the day shavar, the day right before. Kedamar bo'oso v'espano, like we say in Chulin hilkach miskri yud aleph. Therefore, it's still called 11 days. Vein docha fiyasan as yom tzom. The baking is not going to be docha yom tzom, which is Yom Kippur. Chol yom haKippurim berev Shabbos. If Yom Kippur falls on erev Shabbos, ein lechem aponim nefabo. Then the lechem aponim is not baked on Yom Kippur. And the Gemara says, Amar Ravina says, Ledivrei ha'omer nedarim u'nedavos ein kraven b'yomtiv. According to the one who says that nedarim and nedavos, that's karbonos, that are donated, are not offered on yontiv, meaning you don't have the heter of ochel nefesh on yontiv for karbonos. So lo teima midoraisa michsa chazu. Don't say that actually on a doraisa level it's fine, that really there is the heter of ochel nefesh. And maybe you'll suggest v'rabbanan hu degazru shelo yish. And the rabbanan, they made a gezerah because they're afraid of a delay. Rashi explains L'divrei ha'omer b'Meseches Beitz machlokas. This is an issue that's a machlokas in Meseches Beitz in terms of nedarim and nedavos, whether kraven b'yomtiv or not. That's why we say L'divrei ha'omer, that they're not kraven b'yomtiv. And so maybe you'll suggest that it's a derabbanan shema yisha karbanos kol hashana. We're afraid people will delay bringing karbanos all year. She'ein noder v'nodei v'lo yakriv mararegel. The person will make nedarim and nedavos, make all kinds of vows, but he won't offer until yontiv. V'nimtza mechavin u'mamtin melach haramoid. He's going to just purposely be delaying because he wants to have food for the yontiv. V'yod shema yavor b'bal ta'achar. And if he does that, then you have a concern. Maybe he'll transgress bal ta'achar of delaying too much. And the point over here is maybe that's the reason we don't allow it to be offered on yontiv, this gezerah shelo yisha. Ella, but the Gemara says no. Ella rather midoraisa nami lo chazu. Actually, on a doraisa level, you're not supposed to bring it on yontiv. And we see that from our Mishnah, da shtei halechem techovas hayomu, because the shtei halechem, which is an obligation of that day, v'leka l'meimar shema yisha. So obviously there's no concern shema yisha by the shtei halechem. That's an obligation of this particular time. V'katani eino docha lo es Shabbos v'lo es yontiv. And what does it say? It says that it's not docha Shabbos or yontiv. You see, it's not docha yontiv, and so therefore you see again, according to our Mishnah, that's a doraisa level. There's obviously no gezerah shema yisha over there. That's a doraisa issue. You don't have the heter ochel nefesh for that. Rashi explains, V'leka shema yisha, there's no shema yisha, sharein yochel akrivim elabo bayom. That's the only day you're going to bring it. You're only going to bring the shtei halechem on that day on Shavuos, and so therefore again, it must be deoraisa. Hadran aloch shtei halechem, we will return to you, parak shtei halechem. This is the end of the 11th parak of Meseches Menachos. If you're enjoying these videos and this channel, please like, share, and subscribe, and take a look at the description box below to see how you can support this channel. And we will now begin the 12th parak of Meseches Menachos. And the parak begins with the Mishnah, HaMenachos v'anesachim karban minchas and libations shenitmu, if they become tamei, ad shelo kitshu bekli, if they become tamei before they're sanctified in a vessel, yesh lahem pidyon, so then they're able to be redeemed. But mishakitshu bekli, but once they're sanctified in a vessel, ein lahem pidyon, then there is no redemption. Rashi explains, HaMenachos v'anesachim ad shelo kitshu bekli, before they're sanctified in a vessel, so then lo kitshu kedushas haguf. Rashi says they don't yet have what's called kedushas haguf, rather ela kedushas damim, they just have kedushas damim, that's monetary sanctification, shetzarich lifdos, and so then the one can redeem them, v'hadamim kedoshim, and then the money will get that holiness, will get that sanctification. And the Mishnah continues, ha'ofos v'ha'etzim v'ha'lavona uchlishares. Ophos is the birds, etzim is wood, lavona, frankincense, klishares are the service vessels of the Beis HaMikdash. Mishenitmu, once they become tamei, ein lahen pidyon, there is no redemption. Shelo nemar pidyon ela bebehema. The concept of redemption, let's say a korban becomes tamei, that's by an animal. If an animal is a korban and it becomes tamei, then you have this concept of redemption. That doesn't apply in these cases. And Rashi explains, va'ofos va'etzim va'lavona chlishares shenitmu ein lahen pidyon shelo nemar pidyon b'kedushas haguf. The Mishnah means to say by situations of kedushas haguf, not kedushas damim, which the Mishnah just mentioned above, but by kedushas haguf, there's a concept of redemption. That's ela b'behema balas mum. That's only by an animal which is a balas mum, which has a blemish. Then you have a concept of pidyon. Kedem efarish b'Gemara, as the Gemara will explain. And the Gemara says, Amar Shmuel, Shmuel says, V'afilu hein tahorin niftin, even if these menachos and nesachim, because it said the menachos and the nesachim that become tamei before sanctifying in the vessel, one can redeem. But it says Shmuel, even if they actually don't become tamei, V'afilu hein tahorin niftin, even if they're pure, one can redeem at this point in time before sanctification in the vessel. My timer, what's the reason? Because kamadalo kodshi bekli, kedushas damim ninu, before they're sanctified in the vessel, that's what's called kedushas damim. Again, it's just monetary. temporary kedusha. Ukedushas damim niftin, and when you have kedushas damim, that can be redeemed. The Gemara asks, "V'han nitmu tanan," but it says in the Mishnah that it became tamei. Sounds like the redemption is only by tumah. The Gemara answers, "Hu hadin da'afa gav de lo nitmu." Really, it could be even without becoming tamei. Va'aydi de kaboy misna seifa. But since at the end of the Mishnah, as the Mishnah goes on, it says misha kidsho bekli, that once it's sanctified in a vessel, ein lahen pidyon. There is no redemption. And over there, da'afilo nitmu nami lo. The point is, even if it became tamei, there's no redemption. So tana nami reisha shenitmu. So therefore, it says again in the beginning of the Mishnah, shenitmu, that it became tamei. And the Gemara continues, and they change the girsa over here to misha kidsho bekli. Once it's sanctified in a vessel, ein lahem pidyon, then there is no redemption. And the Gemara says, pshit, isn't that obvious? Kedushas haguf ninu. That's a situation of kedushas haguf. Now it actually has that kedushas haguf where it has physical sanctity. Of course, it's not able to be redeemed in such a situation. And the Gemara says, no, it is necessary. One might have thought, hoel ubal mum ikri tamei, since a bal mum is referred to as tamei, and so therefore tamei nami kebal mum dami. Maybe when something is tamei, let's say in this case after it was sanctified in the vessel but it became tamei, but maybe that should be the equivalent of a bal mum by an animal, of a blemish. V'yafal gav de kadosh kedushas haguf, and even if it has that physical sanctity, kinafel be mum mifrak, when there's a mum, when there's a blemish, the animal can be redeemed. So hani nami lifrak, so here also there should be redemption. Kamash malon, and so therefore it's teaching us the lav ki hay tamei kirya rachmana lebal mum, that it was not for this reason that the Torah calls a blemished animal tamei. It wasn't to teach that in this situation there should be redemption, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kof Aleph Amud Aleph.